Welcome back to another Spilldrop video. Today, I'm going to be revisiting a concept that we looked at in an earlier video, Moneycomb. In traditional Rust base building, it's common for designers to include an empty buffer zone around the outside of the base, typically at the foot or in the first couple of lower levels of a base design, to extend the raid cost through the walls and force a raider to take a door path rather than going straight through the walls. Unfortunately, many of these designs leave that honeycomb area completely empty and useless for solos or small groups that can unnecessarily expand the size of your base, making you a bigger target and reducing the functionality of that space for you. To counter this, I've created several concepts of Moneycomb that allow you to use that empty space while still providing a little bit of security for the base itself. How you apply this Moneycomb and where you add it to your designs is up to you. I recommend using some amount of traditional honeycomb where it's needed, typically around the TC, as that's going to be the best way to secure the tool cupboard. However, for many other use cases, Moneycomb can easily take the place of honeycomb and provide you with that additional bit of utility in a space that would otherwise go completely unused. Let's take a look at some of these designs here, starting with one of my personal favorites, which is a locker and furnace Moneycomb concept. This allows you to get the storage capacity of a locker and the smelting capacity for a traditional low-grade based furnace. This can also be upgraded to include an electric furnace here down the line as needed. Sorry, the wallpapers just erase themselves sometimes. I don't really understand why that's happening, but that's Rust for you. And I use these two designs pretty interchangeably in my own base layouts, because this window still provides a pretty formidable obstacle for raiders that will have to break the wall in order to get through to the inner part of your base, or break through this window bar here. If you have the hard side of this window facing in, it's going to make your locker and whatever loot you may have inside that much more difficult to get. If you decide to have your window facing hard side out, that's going to slow the raid through the outer honeycomb walls and then through this window from outside. But it's going to be a little bit easier to pick from the inside here if somebody takes a door path into your base. Setting this up is pretty easy, though I do recommend starting with the hard side stone wall facing in, like so. Then you'll get your locker placed in that corner, and you'll get your furnace placed right about here. It doesn't have to be pushed all the way in that corner. If you snap it, it'll go pretty deep in there. In some cases, it will block those adapters. In this situation, it looks like it didn't, which is kind of nice. But most of the time, I will just place this furnace a little bit looser here facing out. That way, any ambient light coming from the furnace through this opening will be pointed in towards the base rather than in either direction towards the outer walls. Then you'll go ahead and get your adapter on there. Make sure you flip your walls back around, and then you can get a window placed like so. Depending on which path you're more concerned about a raider taking, you can have the hard side facing out or the hard side facing in. Go ahead and get window bars in there or a reinforced window to seal this up. It's the same process on this side. So you'll get your locker in, place an electric furnace, and then get all of your adapters on like so. Pretty straightforward. There's certain ways that you can orient this depending on how you need it. So you can place the locker on this wall to the left or to the right. The furnace can be moved around, as you can see here. And as for any of these designs, the use of embrasures on these windows can change how much visibility raiders have into or through these Moneycomb modules, and also extend the raid cost a little bit more as well. You'll notice with this particular design, the electric furnace is pretty much completely hidden behind the embrasure, and you have to get pretty close to the window to even see that it's in there. So that can be a nice feature if you're looking to extend the raid cost or hide any loot inside your furnaces. Moving on, this is another favorite Moneycomb concept of mine, which is the double furnace stack. You've got electric furnaces up here with adapters all the way around, and you have regular furnaces down below in this sunken triangle Moneycomb, as well as a shelf there for some small boxes and their adapters. It's pretty easy to build this, and you can hide it behind a door like this or behind a window. I like the door because it makes it a little bit more accessible. This is what you start with. So this is a 1.5 high triangle honeycomb. You can go in with your furnaces like so, and they should be pretty easy to place. You don't have to mess with these too much, especially if you're using the default stone texture for your foundations. They'll squeeze in nicely. I recommend getting your adapters placed before the shelf, as they will block the placement of the shelf. You want to get that put in there. You don't want it to interfere with the door, but you also don't want it to go too far back in that corner. Then you'll want to get your boxes oriented correctly so the adapter's on the front. The best way to do that is to make sure that the lip that you see on that far right side of the box is sticking out pretty far. If you have it rotated the other way around, you see that that lip is kind of narrow. That means the adapter is going to be facing towards the wall rather than out towards the furnaces. You want it facing out. Now, before you get too far in, you want to check to make sure that you can place your door frame here. If you're using the window, you may be blocked by that second box there, and you may need to use just one small box. So it really depends on what you're trying to do here. The window method makes this design much more secure than the door method here, but the accessibility of the door method, I think, is more important. Next, we're going to add the electric furnaces. To do that, I just place them straight up against that back wall like so. Kind of squeeze it in there. This one you should be able to kind of step away from, get it placed in here. Before you do that, want to get your adapter on here, and then get this furnace squeezed in next to it like so. Pop an adapter on that guy, and then you can get your last furnace in up here as well. Squeeze it in, adapter on the side. I recommend getting all of the electrical inputs for these furnaces wired in before you put the door on, otherwise it can get a little complicated. And looks like one of my adapters is causing an issue here. It's probably this one. So let's try putting the door on first. Sometimes once you do that, you can still snap an adapter on, or in some cases you can put it on the front like that. To get even tighter placements, again, using the hard side facing in is pretty key, but obviously, as you can see, this works really well too and keeps all of the adapters at the same level. Seal that off with a door, and you're good to go. For this Moneycomb, we have a locker that is sunk down in the floor there, making it accessible from up here. But if someone breaks that locker during a raid, it becomes impossible to reach and loot. Meaning that if you've got a really strong kit in this locker that you don't want a raider to get and use against you, then breaking that locker and having it drop down to where it's inaccessible will prevent the raider from getting access to it, and you can always find another way to get to it later on. This particular module is the same height as this one here, so I added a barrel up top so that you've got 4 additional nodes for input and output for an automated system, as well as the storage capacity of a large box up here. This module is pretty straightforward. Getting your locker in like so, right up against the wall there, getting your adapters on it, and the barrel placement is arguably the trickiest part of this design. You want to make sure that it is pulled relatively close up against the front of this shelf here, but not so close that it's going to block the window. One good way to do that is to place a barrel in front, get up here, squeeze in and make sure it's centered on this shelf. That should be okay. And then you want to double check to make sure you can fit your adapters all the way around. See, that one is giving us a little bit of trouble. So let's try this one more time. And just like so, you've got it all sealed off. You can still access that locker, no problem at all. But if you slap a key lock or a code lock on that locker, it will keep raiders from getting access to it. And if you have this wall hard side out, it will be even harder for them to get into this Moneycomb to access the loot in that locker. Moving on, this is admittedly a pretty silly Moneycomb concept, but I'll show you why I have it set up the way that it is and a possible use case for it down the line. You may need a way to turn seawater into pure water for your farm or just for general use around your base. A good way to do that is to use these small water purifiers. It can be a little annoying carting water from outside the base to inside your base, and especially to fill these up one at a time. So this is designed specifically to let you fill them up from outside the base, and I'll show you how that works. On the outside here, you can see that we've got all these little legs sticking through the wall, and that's going to let you access all 6 of these purifiers. See, you walk up here, you can open them just by clicking on the leg. Be a little tough to get these ones up here, but all 6 of those are accessible from outside the base, allowing you to fill them up from, say, a water source over here without having to go all the way through your base to fill them up one by one. It's quite a convenient trick, especially if you're going to use a lot of these like I've got set up here. Not a very practical deployable, admittedly, and definitely not one that I would recommend long term, but it's a good option if you ever need it. Setting these up is a little bit convoluted, as the rotation of the campfire determines the rotation of the water purifier. So one thing to keep in mind is when you're looking at the model, like the little ghost here of the campfire, when you see the end of that log, it's kind of oval and facing towards me there, that's going to mean that the bucket for the water purifier, where you get the pure water, is facing the opposite direction. So you just want to rotate that so it's facing away from you. Place that as far into the corner as you can, and then you want to do the same on this side here and the same on this side here, like so. Then you'll place your water purifiers like that, and the buckets are all facing in, so they're really easy to access. They do kind of overlap, which can make things a little complicated, but through enough, poking around, you should be able to get access to all 3. We'll do the same up top. And there you have it, easy as. Moving on, we're going to take a look at this Moneycomb module here, which is actually a 3 triangle module. So this allows you to get quite a lot of extra storage space at a little bit of an expense in opening up these 2 walls to make the raid path a little bit less expensive, but the utility is obviously quite high. This module also uses the prison cell wall to kind of reinforce that back Moneycomb module and make raiding through that primary flat wall on the outside a little bit more expensive than it otherwise would be if you left this frame open, and gives you the option to stack these small boxes up over the top of those furnaces for a little bit of extra storage. So I do definitely recommend incorporating this prison cell wall once you've got those furnaces back there and the barrel that you see up here on the top connected to any industrial systems that you'll want. Putting this together is incredibly simple, and to save you a little bit of time, it's just the same as putting this module together on the lower side or the furnaces like you see here, and then you place these walls in the middle, of course, to kind of isolate those 3 triangles. Get your shelves put in right above these furnaces like we did on that 1.5 high module. Then you'll want to get your prison cell walls. To make things easier, I recommend placing this barrel first, so you can place it so that the kind of long end is sticking out towards the base interior over here, and then you can snap some adapters on the front right there. You can also place that barrel once the prison cell walls are added, but that just makes things a little bit easier to do. Now you'll notice when you're placing the prison cell walls, if you've already got these small boxes placed, it may interfere with those prison cells. So you can pop these guys out on both sides, snap the prison cells in like so, and then you should be able to get your small boxes on that shelf back there, like so, and like so. Put your adapters on them, and then you can place these small boxes here. I recommend getting them just about as close to the shelves as you can on their respective sides, and that will make the placements a little bit easier. All in all, pretty easy. Then up top, you can see we've got this barrel hidden in the prison cell, and you can put a barrel here up against this wall. I recommend coming out as far as you want to go with it. You should have plenty of room to place your adapters on either end, like so. And then for the additional storage, you can place small boxes kind of tucked in here. Depending on how you place these, it can be a little bit more challenging to access that back barrel, but you should have no trouble getting to it if you just poke around a little bit. Over here, we've got another pretty neat trick that I've introduced in some videos, and I didn't want to forget to include in this concept. So you can stack small boxes on these window bars, just like you can stack small boxes on these prison cell walls. It's a really nice trick if you need extra space. Otherwise, you can place a box like so and then use the reinforced window, but it won't let you stack that extra box up on top, unfortunately. As you can see, it just doesn't want it to clip. You can only stack multiple boxes in this open window bar option that you've got. Now with this design, we've got a bunch of small boxes up top and of course optional in the window bars. And then we have 2 of these composters down below. It can be kind of tricky to fit these composters into a standard base layout, which is why I incorporated them into the Moneycomb. Now they're a little too big to fit in just one triangle, and I wanted to make sure that I was optimizing the space. So I incorporated the prison cell walls in the interior there to slow down a raid path through that flat wall on the back, while still allowing you to squeeze these composters in on either side, making this Moneycomb especially efficient for a farm base. The prison cell walls in here are pretty much the same as on this design, and there's no real trick to placing the composters that you see on either side, so I'm not going to really walk you through that. But getting the boxes to stack on these window bars can be a little bit tricky. So what I recommend doing is finding a good spot where you can get them to sit So I'm not sure why I can't get that to work. It is technically an exploit, so as with all exploits, you can't expect them to last forever. And there is a chance that since I designed this, that Facepunch has patched this. I doubt it, but you never know. So if you can't make it work, then there's a possibility that it's been patched. If you are able to make it work, let me know down in the comments. Sometimes I'm just doing something weird and can't really replicate it, but as we saw earlier, I definitely could get them to stack, so, you know. The last concept that I use pretty often is a little bit more heavy reinforcement for the Moneycomb. And to do that, I will put a tier 1 workbench or an extra tier 2 if you have one handy into the Moneycomb, and then block it up with either a window bar and embrasure here or a reinforced window. And what this does is, even if you don't have to access a tier 1 to use it, you still get the tier 1 access in this square depending on where you're standing. See down in the right hand corner where it kind of ticks in and out. You can still craft stuff that requires a tier 1 as long as you're standing in front of this window without the reinforced glass in here, but that workbench will add an additional 500 HP cost to any raid coming through this wall. So as you'll see here, break the wall, there's no way to squeeze through this gap, so they'll have to break the tier 1 if they want to get past. There's a couple of ways to break a tier 1 that's not too expensive, but it will definitely slow down a raider and perhaps give you enough time to patch the raid path with another wall as needed. As you can see, this works with a tier 1 that fits nicely behind a window, door, or even a wall if you really don't care what happens to that tier 1. Or you can use a tier 2 in here alternatively, which works the exact same way. But that's all that I've got for you today. 8 different Moneycomb variations that you can use in a future base build, or to modify an existing concept that you've already got that could benefit from a little bit more utility. If you have any other ideas for Moneycomb that you think I might enjoy or would fit in with this channel, let me know down in the comments or send me some screenshots on Twitter and I'll be happy to incorporate them in a future build. If you like this video, leave a like down below, and if you want to see more super modules, Moneycomb, or creative gameplay videos, consider subscribing to the channel. This has been your friend Spilldrop, and I will catch you in the next one.